Dear students, you are welcome once again to this lecture. We are continuing to look at literature review, and the course facilitator is still Dr. Mark Kahwa from the Faculty of Education here at Mountains of the Moon University. So we are in this lecture going to look at the features of a well-reviewed literature. The features or their characteristics. If, for example, you looked at the literature section of a manuscript or the literature section of a dissertation, of a thesis, or of a research report, how can you know that this literature is well reviewed? How can you know? What are the things that you can look at and then get informed that this literature is well reviewed? So one is that the literature must be recent. What we mean here is that when you are citing literature, you don't cite very old references. When you are writing and you are doing in-text citation, we expect to see current literature being cited. Why do we emphasize the current? Because the world is ever changing. Things are ever changing. Something that was of importance a few months ago is something that is looked at as archaic today. And therefore, even if now for your research area, things that happened 10 years back, there's a lot that has now currently changed. So that is why we emphasize that when you are reviewing the literature, you look at the current publications so that you are able to capture the current trends of events, and particularly in regard to your topic. And therefore, when you cite literature of 1900, 1980, 1970, 1960, 1950, it is really not good, and it is not really acceptable. So you always have to quote a current literature, because things keep changing. There are new trends coming up. So the world is not static, and even what you are studying, what you are investigating, is not static. So the literature must be recent. Then two, we say substantial. Substantial means that it should be, you should review literature in depth. Substantial would also mean that you don't just cite just 10 publications or 10 articles or 10 conference proceedings or books, and then you say you are done. That will just be very limited. So substantial means you have to review quite a lot of materials. You have to review and cite quite a lot of materials. And the more you review, the more you cite, the more you read, the more you enrich your work, the more you really make your work rich. And when somebody is reading it, will appreciate. The third is that the literature should be logical. Logical in the arrangement. When you are arranging your work, logical would mean that if you are going, for example, to cite articles, are you beginning with citing and listing? Are you beginning to cite the latest? Are you beginning with the latest? Or are you beginning with the very oldest and then you come to the latest? Or you are just going to ming up your works? So there should be some chronological arrangement, some kind of logic as you arrange your work, so that you appear to be organized. Then original research, and this one is very, very important. We have been talking about this. We shall continue to emphasize this point, that when you are citing work, we expect you to cite original research. How will you know that this is original research? Then you have to go to authentic publishers, authentic journals, and those are the works that you cite, so that we can able to see that original contribution of the work that you are citing. So we also here talk of balanced, that when you cite your literature, the literature should be balanced. Balanced would mean a number of things. First of all, when you are citing literature, if, for example, we looked in terms of regions, are you only citing literature from Europe? Are you citing literature from Africa? Are you only citing literature from America? Are you citing literature only from just a specific continent, or a specific region, or a specific country? So you should be balanced. You should be balanced so that you can look at different regions, look at, for example, look at different authors, different publishers, so that your work is not, for example, derived from only one publisher, or derived from only one journal, or maybe your work is not focused on just one gender. You are only reviewing the works that are published by male scholars, or maybe by female scholars. So in that sense, you won't be balanced. Now, the critical appraisal. Now, critical appraisal, I have even highlighted it. Why have I highlighted it? I have highlighted it because this is very crucial, very important, very key when you are reviewing the literature. The critical appraisal. Meaning that literature is not just copy and paste. You are not going to go online, get an article, then copy the information that is there, and then come and paste in your own. The critical appraisal here would mean that you are evaluating what you are reading. You are critiquing it. You are finding gaps. You are finding what they did and what they did not do, and how your research now can fit in to make a contribution. So that is what we call the critical appraisal. And in literature review, critical appraisal is very, very important. Building a case for a new study. So to build a case for a new study, now you are trying to identify the gaps. You are trying to say that in as much as this aspect was investigated, but A, B, C, D, or this aspect was either insufficiently handled or it was not handled at all. And therefore your study comes in to, fill that gap. Now, you need to be selective. Not every article that you'll find that is related to your work is to be taken. Not every academic resource you're going to find online that should be taken. So you have to be selective. Pick only the most relevant. Pick only what you think will enrich your work, will make your work relevant. Comprehensive means that you don't just look at one article, at two articles, and then you stop there. But you look at a variety so that you make your work appear sensible. Now, what are the different steps involved in a literature review? We are just going to look at those few steps there. The first one, you always begin by selecting a topic. You select a topic, and we already covered this. We already saw this when we were making the general introduction on how, first of all, you identify and select a topic. Then once you have done that, then you search the literature. If I will just give an example, and I can just go back and use the example that we have been using in the previous lectures. If you are assessing the effect of e-learning on academic achievement of learners, or the academic scores of learners at high institutions of learning, then when we come to searching the literature, so you will come and search the articles on e-learning and how they boost, and how e-learning boosts the academic performance. Then you develop an argument. Now, developing an argument here, we are saying that you identify a focus, an aspect. For you, what do you want to address? Then you survey the literature. Then you critique the literature, and then you rate the review. So that is a simple, those are simple steps when it comes to literature, review. So these also are the steps in addition to what we have given. Of course, you define your research question using the inclusion and exclusion criteria. You identify relevant research terms, scoping searches, terms, or related review. You develop your search plan. Later on in this lecture, we shall look at the techniques of searching for information. Then test and refine your research, select relevant databases and run searches, and then document and manage the search results. So we shall look in depth at those processes. Now, the procedure for reviewing the literature, there are mainly 5 steps that are involved. The first one is searching for the existing literature in your area of study. The second one, you review the literature selected. The third, you develop a theoretical framework. Developing a theoretical framework, especially at the very start, at the beginning, is very, very important, because now you are giving a basis for your research. You are showing where your research will be anchored, and you are seeing how you will progress, what will guide, what theory will guide your work. That's what we call a theoretical framework. Now you develop a conceptual framework. A conceptual framework comes from the different variables that you will be studying. The dependent variable and also the independent variable. And you will see how they are relating to each other, how they are interconnected. So, and a conceptual framework, of course, is a grammatical representation of the different variables in the study. So here you develop the grammatical representation of the different studies that, of the different variables that you are studying. And then finally, you rate up the literature. So those are the 5 main steps that you follow, and of course here they are just given in details. There we had just elaborated on them, but here they are given in details. You start with at least one idea of the broad subject area and of the problem you wish to investigate in order to set up parameters for your research. You compile the bibliography for this broad area. That means you are searching out the different publishers, the different scholars who have published on that same area. Then to do that, of course, you read journals, you read the conference proceedings, you read books, and so on and so forth. Now, 2, you review the literature. Now that you have identified the several books and the articles as useful, the next step is to start reading them critically. And if you do not have theoretical framework or themes in the mind to start with, the separate sheets of the paper for each article or book. Then you have, you notice where there are significant differences or opinions among researchers and give your opinion. Ascertain the areas in which little or nothing is known. So those are the gaps we are talking about. The theoretical framework is a structure that can hold or support a theory of a research study. As you start reading the literature, you will soon discover that the problem you wish to investigate has its roots in a number of theories. And therefore, you will be required to state those theories that are relevant and that you know that will guide your study. The conceptual framework, I have already talked about it, and these can be examples of the conceptual framework. Here you have, for example, complaint handling strategies and satisfaction with the service recovery. Then here we have customer satisfaction and how it affects customer loyalty. The service quality and how service quality affects the customer loyalty. Then you have rating up the literature finally. Once you have gone through the 4 steps, then eventually now you have to rate up the literature. But as you rate up, I want again to emphasize that it is not copy and paste, but it is identifying the different gaps and also showing how your research will fill those gaps. So we can now take a quick short break, and we shall pick on from here when we return. Thank you.